over the last 25 years, maybe, Kishore, you and I first met because we showed up in the same events, and you spoke on behalf of Southeast Asia, and I spoke on behalf of myself, but on the subject of Hong Kong and China usually. And both of us believe that Asia has a bright future. And so we fought off a lot of the doubters, how that Asians cannot think or something like that. And so we were comrades at arms, in a sense, except that when it comes to ASEAN, then he and I disagree. He thinks that ASEAN is the best thing since motherhood and apple pie, and I am still a doubtful person as far as really how bright the future of ASEAN is. But doesn't matter, it does not take away from the fact that Kishore is one of the most bright, articulate person on geopolitics that I know anywhere in the world. I'm amazed how that in Singapore, I'm sorry, Kishore, I got bad news for you. You're not the only brilliant guy.
How shocking.
How shocking. I can name many others. Tommy Koh used to participate in Asia Society events a lot in this part of the world, including coming to Hong Kong regularly in the 90s and even into the early 2000s. Chen Heng-chi, who succeeded you at the United Nations as a representative of Singapore. Heng-chi succeeded me when I left the chairmanship of the global chairmanship of Asia Society. I was very honored that Heng-chi would agree to take my place. And then you have other people like George Yeo, who is equally brilliant. You have people like you mentioned, no, I don't know if you mentioned Bilahari Kausikan, who unfortunately had a very terrible, sad personal incident in China. I don't know if it has anything to do with his negative views about China, but he, on the one hand, you and George and others on the other, it is amazing how Singapore produce so many great brains, even when they really disagree with each other. In Hong Kong, on the other hand, produce no such people. We produce a lot of other kind of good people, great people, business leaders, right, artists, what have you, but that's one thing that we don't produce. And the reason I can think of is Singapore is a state. Hong Kong is never a state. Hong Kong is always just a city. And Singapore has Lee Kuan Yew as the leader, and then you have Goh Keng Swee and Rajaratnam that you mentioned also. Those are truly brilliant people in the last century. And Hong Kong have no such privilege of learning from such great minds. So tell us, why can Singapore produce such great minds in geopolitics?
Well, great question. I'm just a quick side note on ASEAN. As Ronnie pointed out, we have different views on ASEAN. There's one statistic that everyone in Hong Kong should know. In the year 2000, Japan was the second largest economy in the world, as you know. And at that time, Japan was 8 times bigger than ASEAN. Now Japan is about 1.2, 1.3 times bigger than ASEAN. And by 2030, ASEAN will be bigger than Japan, what was the second largest economy in the world. And I tell that because I know some people in Hong Kong are worried about Hong Kong's future, what your future might be. One growth area that is very close to Hong Kong, that Hong Kong can tap on, that would welcome Hong Kong, is ASEAN. So that's why I would say people in Hong Kong should pay attention to ASEAN. Now, on why Singapore has produced, you're right, very, very talented diplomats in many areas. I think the key difference is that Singapore had to undertake a very tough political struggle to get to where it is today. So if you read Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's memoirs are fascinating. I think Mr. Lee Kuan Yew acknowledges that the struggles that he went through forged how the man he became. So as you know, he lived through the Japanese occupation of Singapore, which was brutal, really, and he'll tell you some amazing stories in his memoirs. And then he had to live through a British colony, not too bad, but still Singapore struggled against British colonial rule. And then we joined Malaysia in 1963 and ended up having a very acrimonious divorce with Malaysia.
Within 2 years.
Yeah, which was also another struggle. And when Singapore became independent in 1965, the British media unanimously said Singapore is going to fail because this is a city without a hinterland. And as you know, the leaders of Singapore cried when Singapore became independent. They didn't celebrate, they didn't say hey pip hooray because they thought Singapore would collapse and fail.
Including Lee Kuan Yew.
Including Lee Kuan Yew. So you could see, therefore, that it was an immense struggle that the three founding leaders of Singapore went through: Lee Kuan Yew, Goh Keng Swee, Rajaratnam. And as a result of that struggle, they developed a certain toughness of spirit, which is quite amazing. I mean, I got to know these men. I think one of my key goals with this book, my memoirs, Living the Asian Century, is to tell you stories about these three men. And they were, I think, I've met many great world leaders. I mean, I've shaken hands with Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush. I mean, like you have Henry Kissinger, Zbigniew Brzezinski. But the three leaders of Singapore are on par, if not better, than most world leaders that I have met, which is remarkable.
True.
Now, it is because of these remarkable leaders, then if you work with them, in some way or another, you're pulled up by them. Because you learn so much from them. And they elevate. So all the geopolitical analysis that I do, and all the 10 books I've written, I could not have written them if I hadn't sat at the feet of these three geopolitical masters, who in their turn had to go through lots of geopolitical struggles to achieve the kind of understanding that they did. So it was a sort of a cascading series of events, and that sort of led to where we are today.
Well, we all know Lee Kuan Yew, but we don't know him intimately. I have had the privilege of meeting him quite a number of times, even in small occasions. But you are very close to him. And I was told by Hang Chi, who is, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the global chair of Asia Society right now, the co-chair, Ambassador Chan Hang Chi. She told me that Lee Kuan Yew used to bring three people together. From descending in terms of age, the oldest is Tommy Koh, who was the chairman of the Law of the Sea Convention for the United Nations. He became Singapore's ambassador to the United Nations at the tender age of 30. You told me that. And then Chan Hang Chi, an academician turned politician and diplomat. And yourself, Lee Kuan Yew would spend time with the three of you. What did he do with you guys? Was he there to listen to you guys? Was he there to lecture you guys? What do you learn from this man?
Well, I can tell you that we did learn a lot. And by the way, Tommy Koh, Chan Hang Chi, and myself, another thing that's common among the three of us is that we were, at our young ages, we were also dissenters. All three of us had been critical of the Singapore government when we were in university.
So how were you suppressed?
How was I?
How were the three of you suppressed? Or did you get enlightened by Lee Kuan Yew?
Well, we definitely got a lot of scolding. In fact, if you read my book, you'll find that every senior Singaporean has been scolded by Lee Kuan Yew. And whenever senior Singaporeans met, it's a badge of honor. You know what? How Lee Kuan Yew scolded me or not?
That's why I'm no good, because he never scolded me.
And so but the remarkable thing about Singapore is that even though the three of us were well-known dissenters, the government realized that we could be useful. And so they invited us to work with the government. So Tommy Koh went from being a lecturer in the law faculty to becoming ambassador to the UN at the age of 30. Chi went from being a lecturer in political science to succeeding me as ambassador to the UN, and then I ended up working for the government because of my bond from the Singapore President's Scholarship.
But you became the Singaporean ambassador to the United Nations at the tender age of 34. Most 34-year-old is, I hate to say this, but still wet in the pants. I was when I was their age. Were you wet in your pants? Were you?
Well, I actually, no, I think to be correct, I wasn't 34, I was 35, much older. It was to me, again, a tremendous opportunity being, when you're thrust into a very big job. And for me, the hard part was that I was succeeding Tommy Koh as Singapore's ambassador to the UN, who had already been ambassador to the UN for 13 years altogether. So Tommy Koh was a legend in the United Nations, and I was asked to succeed a legend. And the one lesson I learned is that when you're asked to succeed someone who's very, very successful, whatever you do, don't try to step into his shoes. Don't try to. I didn't want to copy Tommy Koh. I said Tommy Koh had a certain style of speaking. I would choose my own style. I wouldn't try to be what Tommy Koh does in the way that he spoke. And so I had to evolve my own character, my own personality, and my own way of doing things. But of course, nonetheless, it helped a lot that I was succeeding Tommy, because Tommy was so well known. Once I introduced myself and said, I'm the successor of Tommy Koh, everyone would open their doors to me. So in some ways, I also rode on the coattails of his success.
Sure enough, Kishore has a very, very effective style, including your style of speaking. And many of you know that I can be a little hot-headed. And I go pick a fight in the international arena for the last 40 years. And oftentimes, Kishore will be the gentleman sitting next to me, and I would be going with whoever, and Kishore would just sit there and smile, and after I finish, he would just speak one simple word in my support in a most gentle way, and the other guy wasn't defeated by me, defeated by Kishore. And his style, I call it killing me softly. I don't know, Anne, if that's what happened to you too, but it's none of my business. I better not delve into that. But your style is certainly very good.
偷偷告诉大家，我最近发现了新法宝 Royal Face 逆时奇迹系列，它有活肤露、全效精华，还有精华霜。尤其我皮肤比较偏干，所以我非常的注重保湿。保湿做得好，肌肤自然烹润。提亮肤色更年轻，抚平皱纹超有感，而且气色变好。用心保养，每天都更美一点。美吧。